Good evening and welcome to Conversations with a Commissioner. Tonight, our host is District 2 Commissioner Nancy Sharpe, and her special guest is our Open Spaces Director, Shannon Carter. We're all here tonight to talk to you about our Open Spaces program and about the potential reauthorization of the Open Spaces Sales and Use Tax. Tonight, the Commissioner will also be joined by two special guests from her district, and they will talk to us a little bit about how having a robust open spaces program is beneficial to their communities. Those guests are Centennial Mayor Stephanie Pico and Greenwood Village Mayor George Lance. We will be talking to them in a little bit. But before we get to that, let's tell you a little bit about how this is going to work. If you're calling in and you want to ask a question of any of the panelists, you can dial *3. And that will put you through to an operator who will put you into the queue to ask a question after the slide presentation. And if you're joining us online, you can type a question into the comments box, and we will get to that as they come up. So with that, I would like to introduce Commissioner Nancy Sharpe.
Thank you. Thanks, Luke, and thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. As we all probably learned a lot during the pandemic, how much we value open spaces and great open spaces, our trails, parks, waterways, and they're one of the really wonderful parts about living in Colorado, and that we can use them so much of the year. It's just amazing if you've lived anywhere else, and I've heard that from so many other people. So here in Colorado, in Arapahoe County, we've spent the past few decades building and enhancing our open space programs and assets. These are funded by our open space sales tax and use tax, which is 1/4 of 1 cent on retail sales in the county. And that's generated revenue for these programs since 2004. The county uses this revenue to fund open spaces directly, and we also share it with our communities and special districts to fund their own specific projects and programs. As a direct result of this revenue stream, Arapahoe County Open Spaces now owns and maintains 15 parks and open spaces across the county, spanning more than 5,000 acres, four trailheads, and 40 plus miles of trails, which is pretty incredible. And you add that into to all the other connections that we have within the cities and to other counties, it's pretty remarkable. Voters have approved reauthorization of the sales tax, did that reauthorization in 2011, and the sales and use tax is due to expire in 2023. And with that deadline in mind, the board is considering whether or not to place a ballot measure on this fall's ballot. And that's why we're reaching out to our citizens and communities across our county to see what you all think and to talk about our open space initiative that might come on. We've not made a decision yet. And I think what we've seen is that our communities, not only our residents and our communities, but visitors to Arapahoe County really participate in using the trails all across the metropolitan area, and I would say from other areas of the state as well. So after Shannon Carter, who I'm going to introduce Shannon here in just a minute, he's our Open Spaces Director, and he's going to give a presentation and talk about the open space sales tax, give you a little bit about, I hope, quite a bit of information on how that the funding that you all have very generously supported over many years is used. And then we're going to go to our special guests, as Luke said, Mayor Stephanie Pico, Mayor of Centennial, and George Lance, Mayor of the City of Greenwood Village. So Shannon, why don't you go ahead and start, and then we'll be back in just a bit.
Thank you, Nancy. I'll go ahead and do the opening slides. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I'd like to just talk a little bit about what open spaces does. Now, of course, we all enjoy our local parks, perhaps the one that's right in your neighborhood down the street. And of course, many of us use our regional trails, such as the Cherry Creek Trail, the Front Range Trail. Perhaps we've ridden our bikes or walked along the Mary Carter Greenway, which is along the South Platte. Certainly in this area, the Highline Canal, that trail is a regional trail that we all utilize. And of course, if you're living in the eastern part of the county or the metro area, there are a number of different trails like the Tollgate Creek Trail, again, the Highline, and the new one, which is the High Plains Trail, which is along the E470 corridor. So we've got lots of trails for us to utilize. And so that's something that we do is we help to build and maintain those trails. We also enhance neighborhood and regional parks. And so if you play ball at the Aurora Sports Park or perhaps maybe in some of the other parks in Dove Valley and other areas, we've funded a number of projects there. We've also preserved natural areas and heritage areas. We've got a number of properties in the eastern part of the county that we'll be talking about a little later. Let's go ahead and next slide, please. This gives you kind of an indication as far as where the parks are. Now, this particular map really just highlights the parks that are owned and maintained by Arapahoe County. We've got quite a number of them. We maintain, as Commissioner Sharpe mentioned, over 5,000 acres of both urban and rural parks. And so a lot of our responsibilities are concentrated along the Cherry Creek corridor, as well as parks and open spaces that are in the eastern part of the county. Next slide, please. This next slide really kind of highlights some of the eastern properties that we have. The big section in the middle, that's our Middle Bijou, our largest holding, which is over 4,000 acres. We've got a couple of open space areas along the Kiowa-Bennett Road. That's Kiowa North, that's close to I-70, and Kiowa South. This is close to the county line. The green part or open space that's to the right of your screen is our Rich Mill Ranch. Now, most of these properties we maintain in agricultural production, but we're opening up some for some horseback riding and some trail use. Certainly the property that's in Deer Trail is very heavily used. It's a combination of both horse trails, walking trails. It's got nice views and vistas, and certainly we'll see something very similar in some of the other properties as we open them up. The next one will be the Kiowa North, which is in the process of being developed. Next slide, please. But now let's get a little broader. Those two slides really highlighted the properties that are owned and managed by Arapahoe County. Now, this particular slide really kind of highlights the community or county-wide impact. As Commissioner Sharpe mentioned, there are a number of different partners that we work with. All of our cities and towns, special districts with recreational purposes. And since the inception of the program, we've been able to maintain or create over 70 miles of trails throughout the metro as well as the county area. 168 park projects, which have been either improved or built or redeveloped over the last few years. We've also preserved over 31,000 acres of open space. Now that's through sometimes fee simple, that is the county or other entity would own the property, or conservation easements. Now conservation easements, we would basically buy up the development rights for certain properties to preserve the conservation values or riparian areas. And so we've got pretty large landscape level conservation easements. And so it would stay within the local family's agricultural production, but preserved for conservation purposes. So we've done a number of those. We also do a number of education as well as heritage areas, our county fairgrounds and the historic 17-mile house that's along Parker Road. Those are areas that are also funded by the Arapahoe County Open Spaces Program, as well as the CSU Extension education programs, Master Gardeners, all of those horticulture and agricultural education programs are part of the Open Space Program. Next slide, please. And as far as some of the various specific things, this really gives us a really drilled down into specifically some of the things that we do. As I mentioned about conservation easements, we really have done a lot of projects that would restore the riparian areas. Now, what's a riparian area? Well, if you're looking along I-70 and you see nothing but plains, and then you see a bunch of trees and there's a creek, that's usually what we refer to as a riparian area. Those are areas where it's along a water source, either a creek or a river, and it's all the flora and fauna that's kind of supported along the banks or along that buffer area along there. And so we've done a lot of environmental restoration projects along with our partners, such as Mile High Flood District and Southeast Metro Stormwater Authority. We've worked with them to make sure that we restore the ecological balance in those areas. Sometimes that's over time, stream banks and other things start to get degraded. And so we help to restore that along with our partners. And of course, we've done a number of recreational safety improvements. For example, the underpass along Iliff Road at the Highline Canal. The most recent one that we completed is the underpass at Hampton and Colorado Boulevard. We partnered with the City of Cherry Hills Village and the City and County of Denver to be able to fund and complete that. A couple more that are on the way is, of course, the Parker and Mississippi underpass that's under construction now, due to complete by the end of the fall. And so these are safety enhancements that make those trails a lot better in regards to getting across these busy intersections. And of course, one that I'm especially proud of because I use it a lot is the underpass underneath Arapahoe Road at Cherry Creek. That was a safety improvement that we were a part of, including the trailhead that's right along there. And of course, as I mentioned, we also support local agriculture by keeping parts of our open spaces in agricultural production. Not only do we contract and lease with our local farming community, our local ranchers, so they can do the grazing, and we find that to be a true win-win because, of course, grazing helps in maintaining the properties. The lessees make sure that the fences and the wells, all of that is done or in good repair. So they kind of enhance our maintenance operations. And so partnering with the local community is a win-win. And then, of course, we have a couple of large properties that are still in farming and hay production and wheat production. So again, supporting the local agriculture. Next slide, please. How do we do it? Well, this sales and use tax is very specific in regards to how we are distributed, how we are to distribute the funds. As Commissioner Sharpe mentioned, 50% of all the revenue that we receive go directly back to our municipal partners, our cities and towns. So that's half of the revenue we receive. And then if you look on the other side, it's also broken down into various other buckets. For example, 4.1% is the cap on administrative, or excuse me, 4% is the cap on administrative funds. There's a 4.1% cap on heritage areas. We have a 12% grant program so that any of our special districts that have a recreational purpose can apply for grants, and certainly they have. 26.66% is used for acquisition and development, and 3.24% is used to maintain county-owned properties. Next slide, please. In total, over the life of the program, we've received over $360 million in tax revenue. Of that, we've distributed over $256 million, or in other words, 71% has gone directly into the community through shareback, that 50% that we talked about earlier, grants, that's when the agencies apply for either large or special grants, and what we refer to as joint projects. Those joint projects are the ones that really take on a regional significance. For example, the underpasses that I mentioned earlier, those were joint projects. We also did a project with the city of Aurora on preserving or buffering the Buckley Air Force Base with trails and open space. And so we're able to contribute towards the economic viability of that facility by making sure that development doesn't encroach on the Air Force Base. Next slide, please. Now, specifically, I wanted to highlight a couple of programs. The East-West Trail, we call it the Centennial Link Trail. That's another trail that goes from the east to the west that really, again, enhances the community's opportunity to go travel from the east side of the city to the west side of the city. Next slide, please. And then, of course, one of our playgrounds that we were able to renovate along with our partner, South Suburban. So this is another great example. This is the Arapahoe Park playground renovation. So throughout our communities, with special districts, with our cities and towns, we're able to kind of replace, enhance, and repair certain facilities that are within our parks, trails, and open space. Next slide. But as Commissioner Sharpe mentioned, we're in the process of really speaking and polling and talking to our supporters, our voters, to make sure that they really support the program. Because the tax is set to expire in a couple of years. It was when they approved the tax back in 2003, there was a 10-year sunset. So it was due to expire in 2013. Well, in 2011, the commissioners put it on the ballot and the voters said yes for a 10-year extension. So that's the reason why it does expire in 2003. So we've spent the last year or so collecting data through a couple of processes. One, we updated our open space master plan. And so during that process, we did a lot of outreach to our citizens through telephone surveys, through online surveys, through telephone town halls. And so we've got a lot of input from our citizens in regards to the program. Of course, we also have a Open Space Citizen Advisory Board, and that Citizen Advisory Board has provided us with a lot of input on the types of projects. They do a lot of grant evaluations when the municipalities and special districts request money for projects. They go through a pretty thorough and very collaborative analysis of what those projects should be. The Board of County Commissioners also authorized a reauthorization committee, 2 members from the Board of County Commissioners and 2 members of our Citizen Advisory Board, and they took a really deep dive into the program to make sure that it was doing the things as advertised and making sure that it was a real benefit to the community. And of course, these types of meetings, ongoing education and program awareness, we're in the process of doing that. And we've had special meetings with our city councils, other boards to really highlight the impact of the tax. And so the Board of County Commissioners will decide in a couple of weeks whether or not to refer this measure to the voters in November. Next slide. These are some of the comments that we've received in regards to how many people feel about the program. The fact that they love the outdoors, that it's good for the health and beauty of our country as well as our county. We need to protect wildlife because a lot of those riparian corridors that we've done the restoration work on and we preserve, those are wildlife corridors. And so it certainly not only benefits us, but it benefits those who we share this planet with. And so these are some of the comments and observations that we've heard from our citizens on the program. Next slide, please. So what are the next steps? Well, some of the things that's under consideration is, of course, no change to our current formula. Right now, again, 50% of the money is distributed back to our cities and towns on a population basis, and so we're not changing the formula there. We also, as I mentioned, have a 12% grant program that we're not making any changes to. We are recommending that because there is a lot of support from our community to make this tax permanent. We also are looking at, because of course, in a lot of these types of programs, you go through a cycle of acquisition or purchasing, then you develop your properties, and then you have to maintain it. Well, we're at a point where we're starting to need to increase our ability to maintain what we have. And that was a message that we got across, or that came across from our communications with our citizens, that we need to maintain what we have, maintain and improve what we have. We heard over and over again. So that was one of the things that we heard loud and clear. We also want to, of course, recommend referring the measure to the 2021 November ballot to really steward, maintain, and improve our open space network. Next slide. So again, what's the timeline? Well, we certainly want to welcome any feedback or questions in forums like this. And of course, as I mentioned, the Board of County Commissioners will be taking that input, and they took the recommendations from that reauthorization subcommittee, and they've had a lot of discussions about it. And so really that decision will be made within the next few weeks. And one of the other things we can do is keep on enjoying your parks, trails, and open spaces. Thank you. And we will turn it back over to our host.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. That's a lot of great information. I'm seeing here on our attendance numbers that the majority of our attendees are on the phone. So I just want to let everybody know that a recording of this whole event will be available on our website within about 24 hours. So there were a number of details, numbers, things like that in there. So if you want to sort of look over the financial and statistical ins and outs of the reauthorization process and the tax itself, you can find that on our website within a day or so. I also want to tell everybody before we meet our special guests that if you do want to ask a question, you should dial *3, and that'll put you through to an operator, and you'll be able to ask a question of any of our two hosts and two guests tonight. And before we get to that, I do want to ask a quick polling question. This is one of two I'm going to ask tonight. And if you could, on your phones, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to recommend living in the county to someone else? Please press 1 if you're very likely, 2 if you're somewhat likely, 3 if you're neutral, 4 if you're somewhat unlikely, or 5 if you're very unlikely. Again, how likely are you to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else? 1 is very likely, 2 is somewhat likely, 3 is neutral, 4 is somewhat unlikely, and 5 is very unlikely. So let's go over now to Commissioner Sharpe, and she will introduce our two mayors.
Thank you, Luke. And I want to start by thanking Shannon Carter and his team that really are behind so much of this, the great quality of open spaces that we have. Our Open Space Trails Advisory Board, which is a citizen board, as Shannon said, they play a key role in looking at grants, and making sure that the money that you all support with your tax dollars is spent absolutely according to the resolution, the initial resolution, the reauthorization, and if we go forward this fall, also following the letter of that resolution. And so that's really important. There are two other things I think are really important or one thing is the Open Space, the Citizens Advisory Board looks at everything, and they're kind of an accountability board, and I think that's appropriate. And the other thing that we do is we have an annual audit to ensure that the money was spent, the share back dollars, as well as the grant dollars that were invested, that they were spent according to what the grant or the share back resolution um, um, is required. So I just want to add those because accountability to me is really important. So just wanted to add those two things. Now let's go to, I have a couple of special guests here. Mayor Stephanie Pico from the city of Centennial and Mayor George Lance from the city of Greenwood Village. So I'm going to start with Mayor Pico and just an introduction here, I guess, to the open space is that the city of Centennial, since the inception of the open space sales tax, has received $42.5 million, and that's in share back and grants and grant dollars. And Mayor Pico, would you talk a little bit about what that has meant to the city of Centennial, the assets that you have, and the programs that you've been able to do?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Commissioner Sharpe, for inviting me to be on the call. Personally, I started out on the Open Space Board for the City of Centennial as a citizen. So before I ran for City Council and before I ran for Mayor, that is where my passion was. And, one of the things that this allowed us to do was really prioritize what was important to the citizens. And I think that's really essential with what this tax has done, is it was, basically requested by the citizens in the sense of they wanted to see something happen. They approved it, and then we have citizen oversight just like the county does. So one of the things that this did was allow for the city to explore the purpose and rationale for wanting to preserve open space and recreational needs within our community. And we established our own citizen-driven and citizen-led open space advisory board. And with the board's assistance in its direction, the city has preserved dedicated open space along the Cherry Creek. We have enhanced pathways, parks, playgrounds, and partnerships that bring treasured recreational opportunities and play to our citizens. The big project that we are so proud of that we completed with this funding is Centennial Center Park. And Centennial Center Park is our flagship project. It's a multi-million-dollar investment in land and amenities that have served the intended goal of bringing our community together. Nationally rated and regionally recognized as a best of winner, Centennial Center Park is host to a sled hill, an amazing playground, a great picnic shelters, an awesome splash pad, and an amphitheater that hosts thousands of people on a regular basis for summer concerts and events, including our signature laser light show event, Centennial Under the Stars. And that is an expansion is planned for the park right now. We have gone through some citizen working groups to look at that. We've had our Open Space Advisory Board looking at initial plans, and we have planning over the next several years to add different amenities to the park that will establish more recreation opportunities for people, different types of recreation for different ages, and also additional restrooms, which is always in demand for people, and places where people can rent and covers so that they can have larger group events at the park as well. So we are looking forward to continuing to provide services to our community through this program. And we have also established our own grant program, so we can work with communities within Centennial, like our school districts and our metro districts, to make playground improvements for them and trail improvements where appropriate, and to make those connections between different recreational opportunities and bringing them together as one. So we also find that besides schools, access to recreational opportunities is the leading reason why people move to Centennial and stay in Centennial. And especially after this past year and the lessons that we've learned, the Open Space program has allowed us to continually improve and maintain at a very high level the amenities that are valued in our community. So I appreciate the opportunity to share some of that with you, Commissioner Sharpe, and I'd be happy to take any questions either now or later on in the program.
Thank you, Mayor. I remember going to the Centennial Park when it first opened, and now all the additions. I'm thrilled to hear that you are adding to it. I think it's an amazing park and recreational amenity, and it's always so crowded because people enjoy it so much. And I guess one question, do you think that the open space sales tax or the share back and some of the grant funding would have been has enhanced that park, or would the park have been able to be done even in the first place without additional funding and support?
Oh, one of the things we pride ourselves on in the city of Centennial is, as you know, small government with a little g footprint, and so we try to stick to our main goals of public safety, public works, and land use for our city. So those are the things the city focuses on, and this has allowed us the opportunity to not have to make choices between recreation and public works, make choices between recreation and snow plowing, or public safety for that matter. We can still concentrate as a city on what is expected of us from our taxpayers, knowing that we have this money that was supported by the public overwhelmingly, that is focused, and we know that is actually put into place very appropriately in the ways that people want it, because we do have so much citizen oversight in the process of what we do. So for the park example, even though one thing that was, because we didn't have an open space board when the city was formed, and because this tax came into place and we didn't quite have things ready to go, we had saved a lot of our open space money, and that money allowed us the opportunity to have a pretty large pot of cash to buy the land for the park and build it at a time when financially it was a strong decision to do that. It was in 2010, 2011, and we had a lot of people that wanted interest into that park, into the construction side of it. So it was a great opportunity for us, and we leveraged the funding that we had in order to bring in even the county with different grant opportunities and expanding the park. So we continue to work with the county, not only in getting our share back, but in asking for additional grant opportunities when it's very regionally appropriate.
I think too, one other area that just comes to mind is the trail going from the county's Dove Valley Park and going all the way up to Cherry Creek and into the Cherry Creek Reservoir. And I don't know if you would like to talk a little bit about that, but I think partnerships are a huge part of the opportunities that we have here with this open space sales tax.
Absolutely, and I think that was kind of a vision that came out of land use and trying to do appropriate things in land use, trying to use the appropriate things for flood control and for water quality going into Cherry Creek State Park. And it gave us a great opportunity to work with Parker-Jordan Metro District, with the county, and the city of Centennial to kind of combine resources and enhance an area that has turned into a real gem. So I would encourage anyone that has a chance to take that Cherry Creek Trail, especially now that, as Shannon mentioned earlier, the completion of the trail under Arapahoe Road, that you can ride all the way around Cherry Creek Reservoir and all the way down into Parker and beyond, makes that an exceptional experience. And it does show that everyone was thinking along the same lines regionally in making these connections, so that for the benefit of our citizens all over the county, they can travel from one place to the other and have a great experience.
And I'll ask you, and I'll ask Mayor Lance the same question. How do you think this has benefited the citizens in Centennial in terms of quality of life? That all of the trails and all of the enhancements.
I think over especially the last 18 months or so, people have utilized the facilities that we have invested in more than they probably ever anticipated that they would. And it does make a big difference for people to even when we have to consider that we're in an area that's becoming more populated, that we have more traffic, we've got great business opportunities coming in that are attracting new employment opportunities for people, great schools, to still be able to take some time, step away from the hustle and bustle and be out on a dedicated trail makes a big difference. And I will add too, I think for the most part, because we are in some parts of our area, we have, busier urban streets, having a trail is a choice that families tend to make, to ride bikes on trails with their children versus trying to manage it through streets. And so we are working strongly, going forward as well in making sure that we have good trail connectivity to get families to places inside Centennial that can utilize trail systems versus having to use street roads to get there, because it's just a safer and a more enjoyable opportunity for families.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. And stay with us if you would, and we'll get to questions in a minute. But I'm going to now go to Mayor Lance with the City of Greenwood Village, and I'm going to start out with the same question. Do you have some, Mayor, do you have a particular or specific project that you have liked? And maybe if you could just share what the open space sales tax has meant to the City of Greenwood Village and your citizens.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Sharpe. I'm happy to be here with you and the other Mayor Pico and all the other participants. To Greenwood Village, it's meant a lot. Obviously, in Greenwood Village, we currently have 184 acres of open space and undeveloped parks, 279 acres of developed parks, and 47 miles of trails, which, as Stephanie pointed out, they've been heavily used over the last 18 months, so it's been a tremendous advantage for us. Specifically, since 2004, Greenwood Village has received approximately $5 million in share-back funds and been awarded approximately $7 million in grant joint project funding. These funds have been used on 24 separate projects. These projects include Village Green Park, the North Expansion, Trail Undercrossing at Orchard Road and Tommy Davis Park, and the Greenwood Gulch Undercrossing. There have been improvements on Highline Canal Crossing. We've expanded ponds. We've put in a skate park at Carson Park. We have, as was talked about earlier, we had need for restrooms along the Highline Canal, so we put those in along Orchard Road and at Castlewood Park. And we've also been able to acquire a couple different properties, the Brody and the Fay properties. So it's allowed us the opportunity to expand what we probably would have planned to do, but it's allowed us to do things a little more swiftly than we might otherwise been able to accomplish. So it's been a real benefit for the citizens of Greenwood Village, and I know personally I benefit from being able to get out on the trails and enjoy and see the neighbors throughout, as pointed out, especially over the last 18 months.
Thank you, Mary. And too, I have enjoyed the Village Greens Park and the bike trails, and some of it would be much more challenging than I could ever do on my bike, but the frisbee golf and pickleball and some of the other things that under crossings that I think are so important. Not only, I think Shannon really addressed safety issues with under crossings. And how do you feel, well, you talked a little bit about how this allowed you to do these projects faster. And it, I think too, if you could talk about the quality, what this means to the quality of life of residents in the City of Greenwood Village. And then do you have a favorite project?
Well, it's meant a lot to the city and the residents, and obviously the people who work and play within the village. Being able to be outside, and we've got very high quality parks and trails that this tax has helped benefit and helped us keep those at a very high level. So it's made the quality of life excellent in our city, and we're very, very pleased to be able to show it off, and we're very proud of it. And I believe all the residents are particularly happy with what they've been able to do. And as has been said, this revenue has allowed us to do several things that we either wouldn't have done or we would have delayed for a period of time. So it's allowed us to expedite things and be able to provide our citizens with a much better and higher quality of life. As far as
Thank you,
what
Mayor.
favorite project I have,
Yeah.
there's so many, Nancy, that depends on the day when I'm out enjoying which one of the projects. So I enjoy a lot of them, and they've been especially valuable. During the pandemic, I liked the undercrossing, so I could get from one trail to the other, even though the roads were deserted. I probably could have walked down the middle of some of them at certain times, but that I enjoy them now, and so it's been very valuable for me.
Great. And I know both cities are separated by major highways, I-25 or Parker Road, major roadways or highway. And I think being able to provide access across our county and or even just within those areas, staying to the east or west of those major roadways, I think makes a big difference and to the enjoyment of our public. So I want to thank you both very much for being with us tonight and sharing your thoughts. And Luke, I'm going to hand it back to you and see if we have some questions that we can share with or ask of the mayors or Shannon whichever way.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. It looks like we have one or two questions here. Before we get to that, I want to remind you, if you have a question, you can dial *3 and be put through to an operator. And also, I'm going to give you the results of the first polling question. Small number of responses, but not 50% of you are very likely to recommend living in Arapahoe County. 22% are somewhat likely. 17% are neutral. 6% is somewhat unlikely, and 5% are very unlikely. The second polling question is, again, on a scale of 1 to 5. Press the corresponding number on your phone. How satisfied are you about your interactions with the Arapahoe County government? So press 1 if you've been very satisfied. Press 2 if you've been somewhat satisfied. Press 3 if you're neutral or it's not applicable because you haven't had any interactions with us. Press 4 if you're somewhat dissatisfied, and press 5 if you've been very dissatisfied. Again, 1 is very satisfied about your interactions with the Arapahoe County government. 2 is somewhat satisfied. 3 is neutral or not applicable. 4 is somewhat dissatisfied. And 5 is very dissatisfied. Thank you for the responses here. And with that, I'm going to invite our caller. We have a Jim and a James. So I'm going to start with James. And James, you are live with our guests.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. My question is there a build-out plan and timeline for the trail system and park system?
It sounds like that's for Shannon. Shannon, do you have a follow-up to that, or do you know what he's getting at?
There's a couple of answers to that question. Of course, a number of our cities, towns, and special districts have their own master plans and build-out plans for specific properties or regional trails. We do have a countywide Bike and Ped master plan that, of course, will take many years to actually build out. And so the answer to your question specifically is that it really depends upon which area you're talking about. So it's somewhat contextual. But from the standpoint of our regional trails, there's some enhancements that we're doing along the Highline Canal that will take many years. Certainly, when we looked at the Cherry Creek corridor, we were successful in making sure that we had an off-street trail from the county line all the way up north to the other end of the county line. So we were able to complete a number of these things in phases. And so really, as far as a build out of the whole network, that will take many years and of course, many partners to be able to do that.
Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
I think that the partnerships are really important because I think, as Mayor Pico said, for us to leverage our dollars, it makes us much more effective. We can get a whole lot more done, but it is going to take a while because we all have to manage the dollars and the revenues in our cities and in our county, and put those dollars when we can, where we can. And so I think that's a real value of all of our partnerships, is that when the cities are ready, we'll be ready from the county standpoint if we have the continued support of our voters for this sales tax.
So I have a follow-up kind of for all of you, I guess. Have you seen the pandemic, I guess, bolster or enhance the desire for more bike and pedestrian safe lanes? Mayor Pico alluded to that with families and that kind of thing. Obviously, in the suburbs, you got wider streets. In many cases, it's not, the neighborhoods are a little more spread out. Do we see a lot more of that in the wake of the pandemic?
Let's go to our mayors first, and then I'd like to come back to Shannon because I kind of know what he's going to say already. But Mayor Lance?
We've seen a number of, there are a lot of people out using the trails around here. So we're seeing heavier use of the trails, and, as such, it's been a good experience for us. The streets are still, haven't been modified significantly to handle more bike traffic, but we're seeing continued improvement on the trails to allow more bikes and more bike traffic.
Thank you. Mayor Pico?
For Centennial, I'd say very similar. The heavier use has been not only, it wasn't even seasonal, it was all year long. So it was all winter and fall, and even at times when trails normally might not see as much wear and tear, it was really important to make sure that we had good foundations on our trails so that they could withstand the love that they were getting. And so that's one part. We do also have a trail master plan for the city of Centennial that was completed, I believe, in 2018, but my memory might be a little short. And that does show what our goals would be. So I think the pandemic made it aware that people were still wanting that, but I don't know that it's changed our schedule as to how we plan on seeing some of these things through. And obviously the funding mechanism would be different if the sales and open space tax isn't renewed. Our park expansion has been based on monies that's been already allocated towards it and would be completed, and we do all get money from GoCo and those types of things as well, and can maintain with that, but can't do any additional expansion. So it would be, we know that the demand is there, and I think there's some demand for on-street. We do a neighborhood traffic management system for our local streets that we allow the neighbors to have some input into whether bike lanes are appropriate on a road, or if it helps slow traffic down and make things safer for the community. So we look at that more on a street-by-street basis.
Thank you. Shannon?
Yes, we certainly have seen a number of interest in especially improving the safety. The safety improvements, as mentioned before, with some of our busy intersections, our busy corridors, traffic corridors, making sure that we can get underneath or over, in some cases, the traffic in order to make sure that there's safe crossings. One of the larger ones that's we have funding for, and we're in the design and just about to start the construction phase, is the connection between the Cherry Creek Trail and the High Plains E470 Trail. That's going to be an overpass that certainly is very anticipated, and we really want to get that done. And I think COVID and others have really enhanced interest in those types of projects.
All right.
The only thing, Luke, the only thing I would add, is I live right close to the Highline Canal, And during the pandemic, oh my gosh, it was so heavily used, so many people on that. And if you've used the Highline Canal, such a treasured asset all across for 71 miles in Arapahoe County into Denver and Douglas, and even a little bit, I think, into Adams, but Adams County. But it is so heavily used, and that's what open space dollars have supported and will continue to support: the Highline Canal, the Platte River, and trails along the Platte, the Cherry Creek, and what's the one I'm missing, Shannon?
Before 70, High Plains Trail.
High Plains, yes, High Plains. You just said that. So, I think that's important no matter where you live across the county, because we have a very long and narrow county. And I think what the investment in those trails and trail connections and are so important no matter where you live, whether you're on the western side of the county or the eastern side of the county. So, Luke,
yeah, and that really
go ahead.
underlines the importance of partnerships that you've all mentioned tonight too. We have time for one more question. We have Jim on the phone. Jim, go ahead. You are live. Okay. Jim? All right. Jim has not agreed to join us. Okay, that's okay though, because Shannon has a hard stop at 7:30. And that's all the questions we have for now. I will quickly read the results of the second polling question. How satisfied are you about your interactions with the Arapahoe County government? 67% have been very satisfied, 11% somewhat, 22 neutral or not applicable, and 0 for somewhat dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, which of course we love to hear. So I want to thank all of our guests tonight. Once again, if you want to see the slides, this presentation will be available on our website within about 24 hours. And we will be bringing you more news about the reauthorization process in the coming weeks. We are doing one of these events with each of the 5 districts over the next 2 weeks. So tell your friends. And thank you to our guests for joining us. And thanks to our hosts, Director Carter and Commissioner Sharpe.
And my thanks to everybody too. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, mayors. Really appreciate your partnership. And we'll just stay tuned. Next couple of weeks, we'll make that decision, as Shannon said, on whether to put this on the ballot. And then you'll continue to hear more. But thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone.